Suffering from dry, tired, irritated eyes? Don't let dry eyes win. Use Systane Pro. It hydrates, restores, and protects dry eyes for up to 12 hours. Systane Pro. Triple action dry eye relief.
Hello, I'm Sarah, and welcome to the Reddit and listener story episode as part of Season of the Witch. I've got 3 spooky stories to share today. I'll get straight into them. Are you ready for the first story? My Blair Witch camping experience. Back in 2006, my then-girlfriend bugged me for months to go camp on the Appalachian Trail, since we lived relatively close by. We planned an overnight trip for a following weekend and quickly cobbled together a plan. We should have packed the day before, because by the time we were ready, it was mid-afternoon. I'm an experienced camper, and I knew the sun would be going down right around the time I figured we'd get there. Jen still wanted to go, so we loaded our heavy packs and got the dogs in the car and got on the road. We had to drive a bit of a ways to get there, and indeed, the sun was close to going down by the time we arrived. We pulled into the parking lot at the trailhead and began to unload. It made us nervous that there was a man just sitting in his car in the parking lot. The engine was running, but he wasn't doing anything, just sitting there. We kind of took our time, hoping that he would drive off, because it made us nervous that a guy was sitting there watching 2 girls hike off into the woods. More unnerving was that with the sun going down, we wouldn't get far enough from the parking lot to feel safe. We tried to outwait the man, but he continued to sit there with his engine running, doing nothing. Losing daylight, we couldn't wait anymore and headed onto the trail with the dogs. We hiked for a bit, apparently not far from a highway, as we could hear traffic the entire time. Right around the time when we'd have to stop due to darkness, we passed a shelter with 3 or 4 people camping and cooking dinner. They were young and friendly, at least one girl in the mix. We said hello in passing and hiked on another few hundred yards, where a campsite appeared just a ways off the trail. We kept walking, but wound up losing the trail because it was getting too dark to make it out. Jem wanted to keep going. I was most scared about losing the light before finding wood and getting set up. So I put my foot down and we doubled back to the vacant campsite. At the very least, we were within screaming distance of the other campers, should anything happen. I set up the tent and Jem began to search around for firewood. It was odd, because we lived in a nearby area and it hadn't rained recently, but everything on the forest floor was wet, wood and kindling included. We then went into panic mode when we realised we might not get a fire started. The sun was fading fast. Fortunately, I'd bought a roll of toilet paper, so Jen set about trying to start a fire with that, and I frantically crashed through the woods, searching the bases of trees for the driest wood possible. All of the wood was so wet that Jen was struggling to keep even the smallest pieces burning for any length of time. We switched places, and I began to baby that fire as best I could, but it was difficult. It just wouldn't catch. After a while of crashing around in the dark woods, our headlamp began to die, and then our flashlight as well. We then realised that we hadn't thought to put in new batteries. I was in full-on survival mode because the TP was running out. I marvel now at how I did not even care at all about grabbing stuff with my bare hands or about what kind of giant spider web I might walk into. I just had to get enough fairly dry wood for the fire to catch before the headlamp died. Like a machine, I gathered armfuls of the driest sticks and logs I could find, dropping them by the fire pit, and continued to race the headlamp's demise. After a great deal of sweat and tears, we managed to get the fire going and eventually built up enough to boil water. We celebrated our victory with a little of the wine we'd bought in an Algene. But then we soon realised that we'd forgotten something important: utensils. It was dark and we were pretty hungry at that point, so I improvised and stirred with a stick. We then ate our food off our plates with our hands like savages, feeling really stupid about forgetting forks. Once we cleaned up, we settled in front of the fire with our wine and chilled out. Everything around us was peaceful and the dogs were fast asleep. We let the fire die down and headed into the tent, where there was some intimate shenanigans, and then we went to sleep. At about 3 a.m, I woke up for no reason, like no noise or anything, but Jem was awake and quietly freaking out next to me. When she saw that I was awake, she whispered that she was scared and to just listen, so I did. First, I heard the sound of the highway in the distance, then night insects, but then I heard two very weird things that put me on edge. The first was the sound of thick branches snapping in the woods close by, but no other rustling, like I would associate with deer or even a bear. By the sound and loudness of the snaps, these were large branches, like 3-inch plus in diameter, so whatever was breaking them had to be large. But why couldn't we hear any movement through the brush and leaves? It was all quiet, and then, snap. As I lay there, feeling increasingly freaked out and vulnerable in the tent, I began to notice another noise. They would come one at a time, but it sounded just like rocks being dropped through the trees. Just like a decent chunk of rock falling from the treetop, going thunk, 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 as it hit branches on the way down. I'm a scientist, a skeptic, and usually quite a logical person. I have to say that I was really freaked out. I tried to reason with myself and say, "Oh, you're being silly and scaring yourself. It's acorns, just acorns." It also was a consolation that the dogs were outside and not barking. Honestly, with as weird as it felt, and with all the weird noises coming from all directions around our campsite, I have no idea how the dogs weren't bothered by it. We spent an uneasy hour listening to these noises, and because we were a bit afraid that the guy in the parking lot might have had bad intentions and followed us in, we finally just felt too vulnerable in the tent. We were able to get the fire started again by stoking the embers, and we sat up drinking the remainder of our wine to calm our nerves until the sun came up. The next day, trying to make the previous night less scary, I looked all around the campsite for acorns. I couldn't believe it, but there were none. None of the trees around were oak trees, but were some sort of evergreen. I didn't find any pine cones either. Honestly, I really wanted a non-creepy explanation, and I couldn't find anything that would cause what I heard all night long. We both agreed that we felt like we'd experienced some weird Blair Witch stuff, and quickly packed up and booked it out of there the next morning. We talked about it on the entire trip back, how scary and weird it felt, but neither of us could figure out how such large branches could get snapped all around us, without any other sign of movement. What the heck was falling through the trees, if it wasn't acorns or pine cones? Just to make the whole thing creepier, we googled the part of the AT where we camped, and discovered that there had been 2 sets of grisly murders 10 years apart. The women murdered were lesbian couples camping, as were Jen and I. The first murders were in 1986, the next in 1996, and the year Jen and I went camping in that area, 2006. So, what do we think was in the woods? They said they had that kind of Blair Witch vibe about it, which made me think it sounded like something paranormal, but quite possibly it could have been the man that they saw at the beginning. But if it was the man, why wasn't he making rustling noises along with snapping twigs? I couldn't say. One to ponder on. Are you ready for the second story? The Bell Witch Cave. This happened to me while I was in college. I went to college in Kentucky, only about an hour away from Adams, Tennessee, where the Bell Witch Cave is located. Adams is a tiny one-spotlight town that you might miss if you blink. If you don't know what the Bell Witch Cave is, either read the Wikipedia article on it or watch the movie An American Haunting. I had a boss in the student library where I worked that told me you couldn't pay him enough money to go back there, and the ghost was able to whisper something to his girlfriend that only she knew. He also warned me not to challenge the ghost. Anyway, me and 2 friends decided to jump in my old Dodge Dynasty and head down there on Halloween night for a tour. We got there just in time for the last tour of the night at midnight. While on the tour, we went past some old Indian remains and a little deeper into the cave where some water was running. The farthest they'll usually take you is a formation called Eagle Rock. I stuck my head past the rock, and I could have sworn some greenish light flashed from the back of the cave towards me. It made me shake my head a couple of times. We got ready to leave the cave, and of course, as a half-joke, I called out, "Kate, show yourself." Immediately, I heard something whisper, but I couldn't make out the words. I dismissed it as hearing other tour-goers talking in the distance. My friend and I started back towards my car. It was about 50 degrees out, so a rather cool fall night. As we came up the hill, we suddenly hit a spot of extremely warm air rising from the ground. At an estimate, I'd say 75 degrees or more. It smelled strange too, like flint. We explained it away as likely some hot water from the cave running close to the surface there. It still seemed odd. As we got closer to the grass parking lot, we heard the family's dog barking incessantly at something. We finally saw my car, and then we saw the dog bolt from the car with its tail between its legs. I joked that it was barking at the ghost haunting my car. We got in the car and started it up, and headed back towards the highway. Strange things started to happen. The heat was on full blast, but the interior of the car would not warm up. Both my friends and I commented it felt like something was trying to make us cry or our eyes water up. The windows all fogged up, and as we passed an exit and some lights, we noticed a backwards K and a handprint embossed in the fog on the outside of the window. By the next exit, a P had formed on the windows outside. During the tour, we had been told the ghost had been known as Kate or Pele. Things didn't really quiet down until we got to the Kentucky border, and the heat finally started working. and the fog disappeared from the windows. Sometimes even now, I feel the pull of the ghost of the Bell Witch Cave, asking me to return. I don't know what would happen if I did. I'm getting chills just writing about this. It's good to have a story that's kind of from a classic witch story. Leaving a handprint is definitely paranormal, I would say, especially if it's sort of fogging up and then there you go, there's a handprint. I guess not, it could have been left there before. But having the initial P kind of reinforces that it's something paranormal in my eyes. And the whispering, of course. Are you ready for the third and final story? A 2003 encounter with a white witch in Potomac Overlook, Vancouver. This is my true experience from late October or early November 2003 in Potomac Overlook Regional Park, Arlington, Vancouver, where I grew up. I shared it with my wife in 2013, early in our relationship, and it still affects us. I'm posting here to see if anyone's had similar encounters or knows local law. Past midnight, me, my brother, 2.5 years older, and 2 lifelong friends, one my age, one his, were off trail a 1/4 mile past the nature centre, building a stick structure in a clearing under the full moon. No flashlights or cell phones, just moonlight showing every tree and leaf. The creek babbled 100 yards below. Suddenly, the air felt heavy, and we heard rustling and whispers from the creek's direction. Not cicadas or wind. We froze, spooked, as the sound circled us. Without a word, we all looked 30 yards down the hill. A woman in glowing colonial-style white robes came toward us, her face shadowy. Her anger hit us like a wave, so intense we couldn't touch our structure. We later called her the White Witch, feeling she wasn't human. I whispered, "What is that?" My friend said, "Is that even real?" We backed away to the dirt trail, her robes glowing closer, 25 yards, then 20. On the clear dirt trail, my friend's older brother cried out, showing a fresh, bleeding scratch on his arm. No branches or thorns nearby. Panic hit, and we ran from dirt to gravel to pavement uphill to the parking lot. She followed, rounding bends behind us. We reached the car, sped off past the tennis court, and saw her in the rearview mirror, trailing at an impossible speed. We shouted, "Let's get out of here," and sighed in relief at Military Road. The next day, we agreed on what we saw. My friend's mum showed us a local folklore book about 2 witch sisters near the park's old Donaldson cemetery, matching our white witch. I've never found that book again. I learned later that Potomac has ghost stories, but we didn't know then. I told my wife in 2013, a month into dating. We've hiked Potomac Overlook by day, but she won't stay past dark. I'd revisit to understand it. As a parent living south, I can't just go back. Has anyone heard of the White Witch or similar figures in Arlington? Would you return to a place like this? Note: the scratch appeared on a clear trail, and we all saw the same figure. This is exactly what happened. No embellishment. The thing that really got me about this one was that the witch creature was following them around, bending round the corners behind them. That really freaked me out a bit because I have visions of like a horror movie type thing going on there with this wicked witch woman coming up behind you. Well, that's it from me today. I hope you enjoyed, and we'll catch you again tomorrow. Take care, everyone.